Got it. Got it.
Yeah, like it's so proper. You're responding to a robot lady, but you're talking like a Bronx construction worker.
And like a really heavy.
Forget about it, robot lady.
That's how they talk in the Bronx.
I don't know. According to Futurama, that's how construction workers talk, but that's also 1,000 years in the future. So,
well, Futurama is an excellent source for anything.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely.
Greetings, citizens of Earth. Welcome to the Accelerativ Thrust podcast.
Yeah.
I told you I was going to be semi-serious with the intro this time.
It was semi.
Yes. So, my name is Dan.
And I'm Eric. And
we're
with
Sam. Wait, let's both say it together.
Wait, we're going to say it? Why doesn't he say his own name?
What? Oh, yeah,
you have relinquished all rights, Sam.
Yeah.
You do not exist anymore.
Once you consented to record. Okay, so let's, on the count of three, why don't you say your name, Sam?
Okay.
1, 2, 3.
Sam Koester.
Oh, wow. There it is, Sam.
There it is. In all its glory.
He did it.
It's there.
Wow.
That is some really good information for this episode. So for those of you, speaking of information, for those of you who don't know Sam, which I bet a lot of you do, probably all of you who are listening, I bet.
Probably.
Knows Sam Koester. But who knows if you don't? Sam Koester has been active in the Midwestern music scene for quite some time, specifically Iowa, Illinois, Quad Cities. Currently plays drums and heavyweight and still standing, which if I remember correctly, Still Standing is going to be playing their final show coming up soon. Sam, is that correct?
That is true. Okay. We kind of came to a head on a few things. We had some member changes and then tried making it work out. And then it basically got to the point where it became more work than fun at that point. So we all had other projects we kind of wanted to work on and everything. And so we're kind of putting everything kind of on hold and deciding that we're just going to bring back some members and do a final show for the time being.
Sure. Cool. When is that final show, Sam?
No clue.
So you guys are still in the process.
Yeah, no, it was, I mean, it involved a lot of like reaching out to the past members and having conversation with them, which everybody's on board. But it's a matter of going back because in the past 2 years was when we did the member changes. And in those 2 years during COVID, we actually recorded an entire EP with the new members, but we haven't really touched any of the old songs. Because we basically were writing the whole record and just using those songs going forward. So we're definitely have to get together and work on the old stuff and whatnot. Sure. We're hoping it'll be by the end of this year, if not the beginning of next year.
Okay. Nice. Well, that's cool. And is heavyweight? How's heavyweight doing as far as new stuff, playing and whatnot?
We actually right before COVID shutdowns, we actually recorded a new EP at Flat Black, and we've done nothing with it since then. We were kind of on the fence on about a few things about remixing it and possibly recording some things and whatnot, and we just kind of been sitting on it. Right now, it's actually at the other producer who's going to be mastering it. So we're kind of need to stay with him and hopefully get that thing out here pretty soon.
Cool.
Okay. Cool.
And you can actually kind of support it maybe now too.
Yeah, and now you know the one thing is I remember I've got a lot of questions about how bands are dealing with like the whole pandemic thing and whatnot, and I remember sitting there telling them, I go, and yeah, a lot of us can't go out and play shows and everything like that. I go, however, what it mainly did was it gave bands that actually do the thing where they always say they'll go play a show and they'll go, okay, this is our last show before we go, and we're going to go focus on writing.
Right.
And all of a sudden they get offered another show, and then they go play that show, and then they never really get around to writing. So in a way, it was like I kind of looked at like the shutdown as like, okay, you have no choice now.
Right.
Yeah.
To write and possibly record or anything like that, and just kind of work on stuff. And to be completely honest with you, Heavyweight squandered that time so bad. We just did. I mean, obviously, when like the pandemic first hit, like we kept our distance because we didn't know what we were dealing with. And we went. I know Still Standing went like 3 months without even practicing. And we kind of turned into we actually started demoing stuff back and forth to each other without actually going into the practice space. Heavyweight didn't take as long, but I mean, we I think we took about a month and a half before we actually got back together, and then we just didn't really like. We kind of squandered it. We'd work on a few things, and then all of a sudden, schedules or whatever kept us away from each other for a while. So the odd thing is now the stuff is starting to open back up and hopefully stay open. We're starting to get more stuff done now,
right?
than when we actually had the time to do nothing but focus on it.
I think that's a funny thing though. Like in all of the pandemic, like everyone always said, oh, if I had the time, I would do this or that or the other thing. And it's like, once we actually had the time, a lot of us were like, I don't want to do anything.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's okay too. It's just like, you think you know what you're going to be like in a situation. And then when you're in it, you're like, actually, I haven't watched everything on Netflix. So,
Yeah. I think a lot of us found ourselves in that situation because a lot of us had never really been in that situation where we were able to watch everything on Netflix.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like, well, what can I accomplish today? Oh, okay.
Yeah. Like, well, I've only seen the whole series of Scrubs twice.
Yeah.
Let's watch it 3 times.
Yeah,
Sure.
why not?
So no, I mean, and it's funny because within the past few months, I started a new job where I work at Sterlite, which we make storage totes and plastic products and stuff like that. And the funny thing is right before I started, I started right near the end of the pandemic, and they were telling me that once it hit, and they were expecting them to shut down, and everyone wanted to like organize their garage and basement. So it was like, well, everyone's quarantined. I guess they just got a boom in business. They were just shoving stuff out the door left and right. So yeah, it's like some people stayed busy with it, and some people just vegetated and
Yeah.
I think we all needed a break anyway.
Oh yeah,
Just as an entire human
just
race.
as people. Just
Exactly.
as people, we all needed a break.
We
It was
needed
just
a new
getting
normal.
too heavy
Yeah.
for a while. It was like, come on, man, this is too much.
It was too much.
Can we just chill for a year or so?
Yep, absolutely. We needed a new normal for a year.
Yeah.
And then everything goes back to the real normal. So the
Oh.
new normal was actually the fake normal.
For real though, I had like 3 things to do in a weekend, and I was like, fuck this. Like, I don't want to be back here.
Like three whole things
It sucked. Yeah.
in the
was
same
like-
day.
I have to wake up for a thing. Oh my God.
Oh my god.
Too terrible.
Yeah, I hate things.
Oh, me too.
Yeah,
I'm not a fan of things.
yeah, things are just
They're the
terrible.
worst as far as I can tell.
So,
Everything I hate is a thing.
Sam, I want to touch on the River City Collective. Now that started pre-COVID, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of got into it, and and I've known you and Eric for
Years.
Well, Danny, I've known you since kindergarten.
Kindergarten,
Oh.
yes.
And
He used to come
so
over to my house a lot.
I did.
And if you
And
knew me
I
when you were in kindergarten, I would have been graduated from high school.
Probably. But I used to go over to Danny's house and check out his Iron Maiden collection.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But so I've been booking shows off and on for a lot of years, and it just got to the point where I was mainly doing, if I wasn't booking my own band shows, I was booking shows for friends of mine coming into the area that just needed a tour stop. And it's got to a point where, you know, I'm not going to be able to go and play shows like as much as I want to. I can't tour all the time. I got 2 kids and a full-time job. But I didn't want to leave music in any way, shape, or form. So, and that's kind of the good thing about Heavyweight is the fact that everyone in that band has got like mature adult responsibilities. So like none of us went into Heavyweight with these like massive out of reach goals of like, we're going to be opening for, you know, Megadeth
right
like, by year's end or something. It's like, we have fun doing it. Well, so then I kind of got into the point where I was booking, I kind of got hit up with a slew of shows from friends of mine coming through the area. And, you know, I just, okay, I'll book the show. Okay, I'll book the show. And I mean, and then I kind of just had like this moment where I go, well, you know, I could, you know, actually do this, and I could actually continue to do this and just keep bringing shows to the Quad City area. And just kind of did those shows, and it panned out, and it was profitable. I mean, that's the whole point of doing this, aside from, you know, bringing entertainment around. And so I just decided, you know, looked into getting my LLC and doing it like as professional as possible, as professional as I want it to be. And we just kind of go from there. And yeah, I mean, pre-COVID, I was doing really well. I was overdoing myself because there was a lot of times I was like, I look at and go, I have like 12 shows in the next like 3 months. And so it got to a point where I was like, I had to start like just turning stuff down because I was just going to burn myself out. And then I had a bunch of like really good shows booked, and then COVID hit. And obviously that put the kibosh on a lot of things. And, but at the same time, it kind of gave me the time to kind of reflect and go, okay, you know, I don't have to book everything that's thrown at me. I don't have to bring every band that wants to come through. Sometimes it just doesn't work out. And and just because I tell them no this one time doesn't mean that they won't come back for another time. So no, I mean, it's once everything started opening back up, you know, I'll kind of get back into the thing, but I'm a little more cautious now. With how much I'm bringing on, which is funny I say that because I got like 9 shows booked right now. But
yeah, but you got some really good shows coming up. Like I saw that you have the Hawthorne Heights one coming up with the Bomb Pops.
Yeah, that was actually a reschedule from COVID. I had them, and I had the Devil Wears Prada show that was booked, and both those became victim to COVID. And the Hawthorne Heights one I was able to rebook, and that one's next week. And that one's doing pretty good. Like I sold so many tickets I had to move the venue.
Wow.
And,
wow, that's awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, it was. I originally had it at the Village Theater and sold that out, and then but there was still like a demand for people wanting tickets, and obviously that's profitable. I mean, me moving to a bigger venue involves more expense. I just had to figure out. I had to crunch the numbers on that. But I mean, it wasn't crazy and it wasn't unheard of. So I mean, we decided to move to a bigger venue. So I said that'll be next week. That's at the Rust Belt in East Moline. So
that's a big place. I was just there for the first time last weekend for Midwest Monster Fest, and it's humongous. Cool. Place.
It's like I mean, they prefer to do any show that's 500 plus, but it holds just around 4,000.
Wow. Cool.
Yeah.
That's
which I'm not going to sell 4,000 tickets, but I mean.
But there are still tickets available, right?
Oh yes, there is.
Yeah, cool.
If you go to River City Collective's Bandcamp, I have ticket links to every single show I got going on right now.
Okay. Yeah, some good ones too coming up.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. So Sam, you've been, as I mentioned before, you've been in this scene in various bands like for years now, 20 plus years at this point. Way to make you feel young, huh?
Yeah.
But So, again, for the people who may not know Sam Koester, would you mind delving a little bit into the history of Sam Koester as drummer of all these bands and just sort of being in the Midwestern scene around this area?
In the Midwestern scene.
The Midwestern scene.
Keeping the scene alive. No, so I started, actually the first thing I played bass in a band before anything. And that was with Matt Parrott in Heavyweight and Scott and Greg when we did Ferg.
Oh yeah, Ferg, yes.
And so, we had that, and, Muscatine, growing up in Muscatine with the music scene in Muscatine was, I think you guys can agree with me, was odd.
Yeah, very.
like in terms of like once you got outside of Muscatine and you kind of like saw other music scenes, I'm not necessarily saying it was bad. It was just ran different.
Very.
So it was like, I remember like when I finally got out to like the Quad City area and actually got to witness a show in the Quad Cities, and it was at Smile Coffee House. If I'm not dating myself on that one as well. But I mean, you got to see all these bands, and I remember looking at a flyer at a Smile, and it was like it was a band that was on tour. We never brought bands that were on tour through Muscatine.
No, never.
It was like, I don't know if no one thought of it or no one knew how to or whatever it was, but I mean, for the most part, it was the same 5 bands.
Yep.
Like at every show,
and they all sounded completely different from one another.
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, it was like you'd have PCU at a show, and then you had Cisco at a show, and then you had Septic at a show, and then you had all these different varieties. It was like you didn't have a pop punk show; you had a show,
right?
Yeah.
And so, and periodically you would have, you'd have the same menagerie of the 3 or 4 bands at every show, but there'd be like a different one. Okay, there'd be a different local band on it, or
right.
And then, I think the first out of town band I ever saw come through Muscatine, I think Kyle Stick brought them, but don't quote me on that one, was a band called Typhoid Mary. And I think that was the first time, and I think that was at Minglewood. It was either at Minglewood or if it was at the Hearts to Hearts. It was one of those.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I actually got to say, oh, you can bring, like, not that I thought they were like barred or anything like that. It was like the shows to us were just us hanging out, and we never really looked at it much past that.
Right.
And so once I got to the Quad Cities and got to see that, okay, I kind of had a taste for that. And then I moved up here, and then like what I would periodically come and witness was like basically was my surroundings, and I kind of divulged myself heavily into it almost like instantly. And I tried to, and then I think that's around the time that we started doing that's when we did Fuck Fest again at the Armory, and then that's when we brought the Broadways.
Yeah
And I think that was one of the first times that, because me and Noah ran that one. And I think that was one of the first times where we had a slew of out of town bands. Like come through, and it was like because we had Guilty as Charged, and we had I think Crop Circles on that one as well.
Yep, Crop Circles on it.
Yeah, and then
technically Gimpy was an out of town band at that time.
Yeah,
technically,
I guess so.
Yes.
And technically we were a band.
That is true as well.
That's very true. You've earned that label.
That's all we were.
So,
a band.
That's all we were. Technically, like, what do you do? Technically, I'm in a band. But no, I was like growing up in Muscatine was, the music scene was, it was enlightening if anything, because there was a lot of things I got to do in Muscatine that I probably wouldn't have found to do anywhere else before leaving. The open goat wouldn't have happened anywhere else.
No,
period.
I don't think so.
And I still tell people stories of that band, technically, and and like the look on people's faces is just like what?
You mean you technically tell them stories of the band, or technically you were a band?
Oh no, I mean I tell them full on stories.
Yeah. And technically, we were not a band.
Yeah, technically, and literally, we had no practice spot. Usually, we were just at the park.
No, just go to the park and bang on trash.
Yeah, and it was like, okay until the cops told us to knock it off.
I think we even started to hide our trash at the park. Do you remember?
We did.
That? Like down the side of the hill, we threw like a metal slide and some barrels and shit.
Yeah, and it was like, we'll leave it here until next practice. Yeah. And actually, Open Goat actually was the precursor to. We had once again technically a band. Mm-hmm. We were precursor to a band we had in the Quad Cities called Chip Tooth and Thrash.
Oh yeah, I remember them.
Which was, it was Nate from Fork Knife Spoon on drums. It was Paul on guitar from Senile Citizens and Tonight's Be Heroes and Sine Mansura. Mm-hmm. And then it was literally whoever the fuck wanted to sing.
Nice.
That day.
Nice.
We never practiced. Mm-hmm. That was our thing. We never practiced. They wrote everything on the fly. I think the last two shows we did, if you want to call them shows, the last two things we did were every song title came out of a Highlights magazine that Brad had at the back of his car that I think he stole from the dentist office.
Oh, that's the best place to get them.
Exactly. I think it's the only place to get them. So, but no, I mean, like going through the music scene in Muscatine, it was like, I think it gave me just like, it made it fun before it made it like work.
Right.
Because that's all we did. I mean, and that's the only reason why we did it. It was like no one was trying to get anything bigger than, playing the Hearts to Hearts building.
Yeah, like why would you make a T-shirt just so someone could wear it to the next show and everyone
exactly
would see them wear it? Like, yeah, you only literally. I don't know. I think it did grow as time went on.
Oh, it did.
When I first started doing it, there were literally 3 bands in town, maybe 2.
Yeah.
And so it was like, you just had to have a show. It was like, well, here's these 3 bands because that's the only 3 bands. And we would have people from Wilton, or maybe Davenport every once in a while. But no, like you said, for the most part, it was like everyone else could go to the football game or everyone else could go to a party. This was like a way for dorky music people to just have a place to hang out and do something, and I thought that was super fun.
Oh yeah, I mean, and seriously, it's like it's some of my favorite memories in life. Like you said, it was a way for us to kind of hang out, and we didn't look at it like work. We had practices, we did whatever, but it was like you said, like no one made band T-shirts because it was like we were. I mean. I don't think, bands did recordings, but I mean, it was like how many half-ass recordings on a tape deck did we all do at some point?
Yeah,
a lot.
And then all of a sudden now it's like it's like the landscape as a whole has changed as in terms of like your local music scene, because it's like now with the technology and the way you can get everything out there, it's like no one's really a local band anymore.
Right.
Yeah, good call.
You can easily do a recording and have it on the other end of the world in 15 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And so there's way more possibilities and there's way more advancement out there for bands than we did, but at the same exact time we weren't looking for them.
Right.
Like we had much of everything in my life has zero expectations.
Right.
Of any of that. And I think that's what made it fun.
For sure. And we all earned a lot of undeserved confidence. No, but what I mean is like, if you put your music on the internet has no problem being like, you suck, bro.
Oh, yeah.
And, back in the day, it was like, well, do you have a band? Sort of. All right, you're on the bill.
Yeah.
So it's and the same thing goes for, almost, well, as I'm sitting here talking to you guys, in all honesty, outside of Danny, who I've known for so long, if it wasn't for music, doing music in Muscatine and everything, like I probably wouldn't know you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's, I mean, some like, that was the one thing is like my girlfriend looks at, like, for example, she look at my Facebook friends and it's like, 2,000 plus or others. You don't know that many people. I'm like, almost all of them are from music.
Oh yeah.
Right.
And whether it be someone who I have conversations with on a normal basis or someone who, again, we're just musicians who I hooked them up with the show and we just stay in contact, whatever that, those are all connections that I've had through music.
Yeah.
And it all started fucking in Muscatine. And it's hard to say that if I would have went another route in my life, that I wouldn't. It's hard to say if I'd be as happy, because I think going through all that in Muscatine and kind of growing up in that music scene and everything, like, I mean, it was a lot of fun.
I think also one thing that I always kind of say that in a weird sort of way, I feel like we kind of had an advantage coming from a place like Muscatine. And and the reason why I say that is because, like, we, like you were saying, Sam, the Quad Cities already, like, it's safe to say that the people we know from the Quad Cities that are our age were already being exposed to like other scenes by the time they were like 16 and we really weren't. Like you said, it was pretty much the same local bands. But, because of the fact that we had so much fun with the music in our scene, and because, we were so, I guess, easily pleased compared to, like, not to say that the Quad City scene that's almost making it sound like they're jaded or something, but that's not what I'm trying to say.
And I get what you're saying. It's like when you live in an area, like, and I'm just going to use, like, let's say Chicago, for example.
Right.
Like, there's so much going on, and you live in an area where, I mean, you're a major concert circuit for almost any touring band, to where a band could come through Chicago, and if you don't get them, okay, I'll see them in 4 months when they come back through.
Yep.
And coming from a small town that, it used to be like when I was touring all the time, it was like we look forward to those small town shows. And it's because we knew there ain't nothing else going on in that town.
Yeah.
And
people are going to show up, and they're going to show up. Like, they're going to have a good time.
Exactly. I remember, was it Fault Lines? Fault Lines was on tour, and we ended up hopping on this show. Actually, the show got booked for us. We had an opening. We were on our way home, and I think we had Lawrence, Kansas, and then we had a day off, and then we had like Des Moines or something like that. And there was a kid I contacted like before we left for tour, and he emailed me and he was like, "Hey, did you still need a show?" I'm like, "Well, I needed a show like 3 weeks ago." And this was like the next day. And he just goes, "Oh, well, I can put something together real quick." And because for whatever reason he couldn't do it before, now he could. And he just goes, "Well, I can put something together." I'm like, "Okay, cool." And he put it together literally in like 24 hours. And it was in some small town in, like, as soon as you crossed over into South Dakota. And I couldn't even remember the name of it, but I remember pulling in and we passed the sign that said population like 220. And I was like, "Oh, okay." And so we got there. There was already, at least the town was already at the venue. And I think a total of like, it was like 310 showed up for the show. There was no major act on the show. And so, and it had nothing to do with Fault Lines itself. It had to do with the fact that we were something to go do.
Right.
And at the same time, the people who, the type of people that are yearning for something so bad are usually music fans.
Yeah.
And so when you have music fans in this area and there's not a whole lot of stuff that comes through, or they have to travel to it for the most part, and you bring it to them, they're usually come out in droves. And so not only did we have the whole town there number wise, we brought people to the town because, but no, I mean, it's like we looked, and that show was awesome. And I remember we sold like, I don't know how much merch before we even played. No one knew who we were.
Right.
Wow.
They were just stoked to have a shirt. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think growing up in that small town mindset, especially as a musician, I think it really sets you up really, really well I think it sets you up for, your expectations of what you're getting yourself into and what you expect out of it.
And also, I know that like when I discovered the scene, like in the Quad Cities or the scene in Iowa City, it made me appreciate that so much more. That, you know what I mean? I was like excited to like find out, like you were saying, Sam, you can actually book out of town bands that are on tour. Like this band is from San Diego and they're playing in Iowa. What?
Yeah, they want to come here.
Yeah, exactly. It was just like, it was like this exciting thing that I would try to brag to my friends about, and they'd be like, "Shut up." They'd be like, "What are you?"
And I remember, I think after the first even though they were Davenport, but I think the first out of town band I remember seeing at the Minglewood was Odelid.
Yeah.
Either Odelid or Dale Donuts is one or the other. But same thing. It was like, at that point we did so many shows with the same Muscatine bands over and over, and I never complained once that it was like, oh, it's the same bands. Oh, it's the same band. I never complained. I had fun.
Yeah.
But then you start bringing in like other bands and everything like that. Like, oh, it was something new. And like I said, I think it really sets you up for a good positive mindset if you look at it correctly.
Yeah.
Like if you don't jade yourself out or anything like that. There's certain people who come from a small mindset and they move to a bigger place and then all of a sudden they're elitist about it. And it's like, no, it's like there's no reason to be like that. It's it's totally fine to be very humble from where you come from, and that's what brought you into this whole scene anyway.
Right. Sam, who played that first show that you saw in the Quad Cities? Do you remember?
I know Darling was on it, and it might have been Dale Donuts as well.
Okay.
If my memory serves me correctly, I'm pretty sure they were all Quad City bands.
Yeah. Eric, do you remember by any chance the first show you went to outside of Muscatine?
Let's see. The first show I saw out of Muscatine, I think it might have been House of Large Sizes at Uncle Roscoe's in Davenport.
Uncle Roscoe's.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's real old.
I've never been there, but heard stories about the place.
Oh yeah, it was a cool place. It was like an old theater, or a church or some shit. Like it had a stage, and you could tell it was just old. But and you could still smoke. So I smoked a bunch of clove cigarettes and acted super cool. Yeah.
So artsy.
But I will say that it did sort of blow my mind. House of Large Sizes was and is an amazing band.
Yeah.
And Dave's vocals and guitar playing and stuff, I think is super underrated. Like there's no one that really sounds like that. I mean,
oh no, absolutely.
And so, yeah, I really loved him. I fell in love with the idea of then maybe playing other places, because I hadn't even really thought of that. But then I was like, oh snap, maybe a band I'm in could play in Davenport.
Yeah,
it was like an epiphany, the world's stupidest epiphany.
Oh, we can come up here too, like it's like gang territory.
Right?
Like,
yeah. Well, honestly, I think when things were first starting out in Muscatine, we just didn't think we were like, why would anyone want to come here? And not.
Oh yeah. Totally.
Not like we hated Muscatine and thought it was shitty, even though we did. But it was more like, well, hell, we can only get 3 bands to form in this town. Like, why would anyone come in? And so, yeah, it just didn't really. I didn't really think about it at the time, but I wish we would have for sure.
Oh yeah,
it was like, we could round out our bills by bringing other people in. Oh shit.
Oh yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
And that's the thing now. It's like when I'm doing shows now, it's like I have to find the locals and everything.
Mhm.
There seems to be right now. There's kind of a lull in local bands,
Yeah.
especially me, to be honest with you. I mean, I remember, Muscatine and Iowa City are two of those music scenes that used to thrive at one point. I remember in high school, like, Danny, how many bands were there going on in high school?
Oh man, I was just having this conversation actually with a friend of mine. Well, Travis, we both know who that is. Or all three of us know who that is.
Who?
We were having I was having the conversation with him, and it seemed like for a good 10 years, and I'm going to say from the year 96 all the way up to like 2006, when Corey started to get involved in the scene with like Trendy Bastard and his tape label Sass Baloney, there was anywhere between 5 to 10 bands forming from the Muscatine High School, like every year. Like,
wow.
There was always a crop of bands. Like, between, especially when Corey was involved, between like 2002 to 2006, there were like several bands, and most of them only played like 1 or 2 shows and then broke up and then formed other bands. But like,
it still counts.
I actually credit a lot of that to like, Corey and like the whole like sort of aesthetic that he brought like at that time, but like,
the funny thing is, it's like with Corey is probably, as long as I've known that kid, like, he is probably in the truest form of DIY that I've ever met. And he's between, whether we're talking about his artwork or we're talking about, any band he's ever done, I can't even imagine the type of stuff or the offers that Closet Witch gets that they just stay away from. And it's like, and more credit to him, because I mean, it's, again, for someone who's been doing it for a while, and the financial aspect to it, and the energy aspect to it, and the mental aspect to it, and to have like these opportunities that could kind of take some of that stress off you, but they still decide to keep it on their own terms. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing. Ooh. Where do you see, like, okay, you've kind of talked about it a little bit, but where do you see like River City Collective going from here? Or what are your goals for River City Collective in the big picture, I guess?
Straight up bankrupt.
So you're not going to be getting any of those $1 million deals?
Oh.
No. I've had a few offers for, bands would hit me up, or management hit me up, and they're like, we need this much. I'm like, absolutely not. I'll deal with anything from $100 guarantees to the 5-figure guarantees if it's within reason.
Yeah.
But if it ever gets to a point to where this is so profitable for me and my family that I can do, and I can focus strictly on this, that'd be awesome. I don't have to watch plastic totes get made for 12 hours.
Right.
But if it turns out to something to where it's, I'm still kind of doing shows here and there, and I'm bringing acts through, and I think more importantly, it's when I do this and I bring in, like, especially the smaller acts, even up to the bigger acts, to be honest with you, is showing these bands who've never heard of the Quad Cities, like, oh shit, we want to come back. That happened with Die Artist Murder, which was right before COVID. They're on tour with Cannibal Corpse. They're a deathcore band from Australia, for God's sakes. Die Artist Murder. And so I knew who they were. I never really listened to or followed them. My son is a fan of theirs. And if that's telling you what the type of people I'm raising into this world. And but he's like, he was really, really into them. And I saw they're on tour, and I threw out an offer, and they had a day off going from Des Moines to Chicago suburb.
Oh, nice.
And I threw out an offer, and they took it. And obviously, it's one thing when you're not from this country, you're not going to know Davenport, Iowa, or whatever. But I ended up booking at Ribco in Rock Island, and they loved it, and they wanted to come back. So I mean, it's and then obviously COVID hit and no one was going anywhere. But we just, I mean, and I kind of enjoy that. I kind of enjoy bringing bands through and I think it's the same thing when I talk about, like, we go play smaller towns and we look forward to playing smaller towns. When you're a small band playing a small town, it's like, a small town to us is smaller than where we came from.
Right.
Yeah.
So, like, when you're a national touring actor, you're a band that tours very constantly. And, okay, you're used to hitting up markets like Chicago, like, even Des Moines in a sense, or Minneapolis, or, Milwaukee, or anything like that, especially in the Midwest area.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when you throw out, okay, Davenport, Iowa, and they don't know what it is. They're going to have very low expectations.
Mm-hmm.
And I really enjoy kind of blowing those expectations out of it.
Right.
Sure.
And especially if people show up. Actually, example of this was, and this kind of fell into my lap. I got a friend named Aaron. He actually runs Metro Concerts out of Des Moines. And we've partnered up. Well, basically, he's hit me up with, hey, he has a show that they had offered to him, but he has no place in Des Moines to do it, or he has too many shows going on in the area. He'll hit me up, and we'll move it down here. And then basically we just split the responsibilities, spread profit, all that stuff. And he hit me up. It was right before, everything was starting to open up. Basically, people started rolling the dice on when stuff was going to open up.
Mm-hmm.
And so he hit me up in February for an event in June. And this was my first non-musical event. And it was Hell's a Poppin' is what it's called.
Mm-hmm.
It was called Hell's a Poppin', and it was a circus sideshow.
Yeah, like a freak show, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was a bit, but it was like the stage production and everything was very like old school, like you said, like freak geek show.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Had a skilled archer, had, someone walking across glass,
Mm-hmm.
a strong man, stuff like that. And when it was first thrown to me, I was like, okay, sure. I had nothing booked at this time. I hadn't started booking anything yet.
Mm-hmm.
And so I go, yeah, sure, whatever. It's not my wheelhouse. I go, but yeah, it's something to get stuff open back up, get people back to coming to live events and everything. And I had no idea that this thing is like huge.
Huh.
Like they've toured with like Rob Zombie and like done their stuff on stages like that. And so I booked them at the Village Theater with chairs as like 250 people. And they on this tour that they were coming through on, like they were playing places that was 700 to 800 people and selling out. And I put them here and it sold out. I was turning people away at the door. And I had no idea so many circus freak fans were in the club. And I started turning people away at the door. And like when the show was over with, like, again, they never heard of the place.
Mm-hmm.
And they were wanting to come back. And I said, well, you come back, I'll put you in a bigger place now that I know what you can do. But yeah, it's stuff like that. It's like people who've been on bigger stages and everything like that came to a small town and then wants to come back.
Right. Yeah.
Like, that's good. That's good for my business.
Yeah.
And but yeah, I will say, side note, the one of the really coolest things about that whole show was their tour bus driver and merch guy is head of security for Doyle of the Misfits.
Wow.
Wow.
So I got to hang and talk with him most of the night too. So
nice.
So the show was cool.
Got to hear all the Doyle stories.
Oh yeah, all the Doyle stories they got. And I was like, this is so awesome.
Oh, I was going to ask about, because we haven't really touched on the River City Throwdown yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you had that the last time in 2019, 2018?
2019 was the last one that I did.
Right.
Obviously, and then COVID stopped it, and so I didn't do 2020. And then stuff started opening up, but it was opening up slowly. I would have started booking like 2 months before stuff was opening up.
Mm-hmm.
My plan is 2022 to come back with it.
Cool.
I have plans, and I've had conversations with bands and stuff like that. And actually doing River City Collective now has opened up my horizons on, broadened my horizons on who I can bring in.
For sure.
Because,
yeah.
Right.
Which, I love bringing in regional acts. I love bringing in bands from the Nebraska side, Wisconsin and Minnesota and everything like that and everything in between. But, when I'm able to bring in the national acts, it helps a lot better, especially with the cause as well. So.
Right. Yeah. Do you want to tell people what the cause is and how this all came about?
Yeah. So the original, the original idea for the Throwdown started as, I think I was talking to Matt in Heavyweight. And I just kind of told him that I had this, we should book. At this time, we were playing Cedar Rapids a lot. And I mentioned something about we should do a weekend run, like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday type thing. And we'll do a show in Des Moines, we'll do a show in Cedar Rapids, we'll do a show in Quad Cities or whatever. And I go, and basically what we can do is every show we do, we'll book shows with our friends in the area, play the show, and then whatever money we make, we'll donate it to a local charity of wherever we played at. Okay, we donate to Des Moines. Okay, and so the first thing, I just kind of sat there and I was like, I didn't really have an idea of a charity at the time. Good friend of mine, Karma Truitt, works for the Muscatine Domestic Violence Shelter. And I remember I pitched this idea to Matt, and then I didn't really, I kind of sat on it for a couple of weeks, and I remember being over at Steve's house. I think we were watching a wrestling pay-per-view. And she came home, and it just kind of dawned on me. Oh, I was like we could do it for the domestic violence shelter for every area. I grew up in a house that had some domestic violence in it. And so at that point, it was like connecting the dots on that one. It was like a no-brainer.
Right.
And so then at first, okay, it's like I'll book the Muscatine one. And I'm thinking, okay, well, where in Muscatine? I wanted to keep it as much of a DIY feel as possible. Like I didn't want to just book it like at the, and no offense to them, but I didn't like book it like the Brew and then just like, okay, here's a show. I kind of want to. I have a tendency to book stuff and then just like do it to keep myself busy. Right. So it's like if I did it at the Brew, it's like you're going to see me standing by the door because everything's taken care of. It's like they have stage people, they have bartenders, whatever. I'm just going to sit there. And if you ever see me at the Throwdown, like you'll see I'm just bobbing around everywhere.
Yeah.
And so what I just say, okay, where in Muscatine can I book it? Blah, blah, blah. And I just started thinking about all the old shows in Muscatine. And it was like, I don't think there's been a show at the Red Brick Building in I don't know how long. And at that time, I didn't even know if they even let me rent it out for it. Because, some of us have ruined that for other people. And so, and so I go, okay. So, I figured out, okay, Parks and Rec. Went in, I talked to them, told them what I was doing. And they're like, oh, no, you can do that. You can do that. I'm like, oh, okay. And then I remember they go, it cost me $100 to rent that building for the entire day.
Wow.
And I go, that's it? And they're like, yeah, from 9 a.m. to midnight for $100.
Wow.
And I go, so either since high school, because I can't remember what it cost back then, either they dropped their prices drastically, or $100 fucking was a lot of money to me back in high school.
Yeah, probably a combination of both.
Of both, yeah.
Both. And so, and originally this was started out, it was going to be just a one-off.
Mm-hmm.
Like and then I was still looking at doing a weekend run. Well, I put so much thought and effort into the one in Muscatine that I just never booked the other ones. And I was like, okay, so we'll do this one, we'll see how it goes, and then we'll look at doing the weekend ones afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
And did the first one, lots of fun, tons of fun. And then when the show was over, you know, and it's always great when you have shows and there's no like incidences, like there's no fights, there's no awful people didn't show up, you know, everyone had a good time. And when that got over and done with, I remember cleaning up, and I remember locking up, and I remember driving home, and I remember sitting there thinking that it's something that I could do every year.
Yeah,
and
sure.
And then ever since then, it's like, so and what they'll do with Parks and Rec will let you book out a year out. From whatever today is, they'll book it. They'll book it 5 days out. So basically, what I do is I go drop off the keys, and then I just rebook the place right then and there.
Oh yeah, makes sense. Nice.
So I just drop the keys off, because then so I basically, you know, so I spent the $100 to rent the place. When the show's over, I pay myself back, but then all I do is take the $100 and just go put it down for the next year. Nice. And so then over the years, you know, it just kind of just escalated into what it became. It sucks the last few years, you know, this last year and this year is not happening, but I mean, it gives me time to, I mean, especially from a safety standpoint, it needs to happen.
Sure. Right.
But it gives me time to kind of really plan out next year's and kind of come back full force.
So Sam, speaking of shows, what shows and events are coming up with the River City Collective that people need to know about besides the Bomb Pops, and who else is playing the Hawthorne Heights and Bomb Pop show? I'm sorry.
I have so we got Hawthorne Heights, Bomb Pops on tour together, and then I have 5 a.m. Which is they're out of the Quad Cities, members of they were in a band called some of the members were in a band called Sleep Well. So they're opening that. So 5 a.m. and then Muscatine band Eugene Levy.
Oh yes.
Opening that.
They're opening that show.
Yeah, well, 5 a.m. will be opening it, and then Eugene Levy will be doing direct support to the
Eugene Levy is doing a lot of stuff lately, man.
They got a lot of stuff going on, it's like they work really, really hard, and I'm proud of those guys. I'm glad everything they got going for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I mean, they're workhorses.
They're kind of like the only real Muscatine identified band right now. Like, I mean,
at this point,
you could kind of say Closet Witch just because Corey and Molly live there, but they're not really.
And it's so funny because it's like that's like the running gag that no one really knows where
they're from, except for like people like me who know them personally.
Yeah, and it's like because it's so funny because like, I'll see them on like there'll be posts that were like Iowa City's own, and like they're not from Iowa City.
But yeah, the easiest thing with them is just say they're from Iowa. Like,
yeah, that's
it's all you can
around
say.
Here somewhere.
But yeah, Eugene Levy is pretty much the only like real Muscatine band.
They're workhorses, man. So I got that show, the Hawthorne Heights show. That's on September 16th. The same day as that show, because I'm stupid enough to book my own competition. That same day at Skylark in Rock Island, I have By the Thousands and Hive. And I booked that. They're friends of mine. They're on tour. They needed the show. And whoever's going to see By the Thousands is not going to go see Hawthorne Heights.
Yeah.
It just doesn't really work out that way.
Right.
And so I got them at Skylark. And then October 7th, I got the New Age Filth Tour, which is with Hail the Sun, Kirk Travis, Karen Ashe, and Body Thief. Local act for that one is a band called Bouquet, which is members from the band Avoid that were from Central Iowa.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, if you haven't heard that band yet, like they have stuff up on YouTube and Spotify. It's so good. Then on the 16th of October, Victims is coming back through, and that's actually Doppelganger. They're an instrumental metal band from the Quad Cities.
Oh.
They released an album during the pandemic, and there's actually like their first show with it. As well as Common Choir is on that show.
Okay.
And Pit Lord.
Oh, Pit Lord. They're fun.
And then I just announced last week Enterprise Earth. I got them on October 10th. That's also with Rig Time. And then on the 27th of October, I got Less Than Seconds of Life, Filth, Falsifier, Weeping Wound, and Portals. October 29th at Ribco, I got A Light Divided, The Almas, and Heavyweight. And then I just announced last week as well, in December, I got Modern Life is War.
Nice.
With,
that's going to be a really sweet show.
Yeah, I got them and Closet Witch.
Spectral Snake is playing that too, aren't they?
Spectral Snake's on that way. So opening band will be a band called God War. They're a hardcore band from Quad Cities. Closet Witch, we know who that is. Spectral Snake, that's Brooks' band, which you know that.
Yep.
And then Desperate Acts, I never heard until they're touring with Modern Life is War. Never heard them, check them out. Really good. Kind of like along the lines of like if the Lawrence Arms was a little bit edgier.
Okay.
So, and then, so yeah, I mean, that's pretty much, I got everything booked. I got some other things that are, that I got offers out, and I got things that, kind of working on, but nothing's been set up solid yet. So,
cool.
I said, we'll just, when stuff comes out, I mean, it'll be posted, but I mean, you can follow River City Collective on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram. That if you want to follow some Bandcamp, anything that gets announced on Bandcamp, you'll get notifications of that as well.
And the Bandcamp is how you will get tickets, correct?
Yes. So every single event page that I make on Facebook, the ticket link will take you to the Bandcamp.
Gotcha.
Page.
Cool.
But if they want to look directly for the Bandcamp page, it's River City Collective RCC.bandcamp.com.
Nice.
Okay. Cool. Lots of good stuff coming.
Yeah.
Well, Sam, thanks for being on the podcast.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.
And as usual, you can follow Accelerativ Thrust on Facebook and Instagram. You can, email us with comments, concerns, hate, food.
Yeah.
Did you say food?
I said, ooh, but hate food sounds pretty good.
Well, no, I thought you said email
I'm gonna
us.
eat this burrito right here.
I thought you said email us with food.
Yeah, if you want to email me some food,
Download
that's
a
all
meal.
right. Yeah,
That would be great.
I'll use my my 3D printer to get a piece of pie. Yeah, a burger, plastic burger.
Do you think it's going to get to that point where we can actually download a meal?
Yeah.
God, I hope so.
Yeah. I think
I'm just going to answer yes. I do think
All
that
right.
will happen.
Well, yeah.
I don't know
it'll
how.
It'll happen.
Yeah, something strange is going to happen. I mean, all these things that we thought were never going to happen happened, and there's got to be more out there. No,
I need to just be able to download some fish and chips right into my mouth.
That sounds delicious.
That's what I need in my life.
Do you like it with? Yes. Do you like it with tartar sauce, Eric?
Yeah, and vinegar.
Vinegar, yeah, malt vinegar. Can't go wrong with that.
Sam says no.
No.
Sam, what would you download, Sam?
Into your
What
mouth.
I download?
Yeah, what food would you? What meal would you download?
Well, the fine people at Burrito Factory.
Oh yeah,
nice.
They're good. They're good.
I'm gonna
All
change
right.
my answer to a maple long john.
Oh,
Just
Maple Long
I
John.
just thought it'd be easiest to download into my mouth.
cool.
So
That's
So now you're looking for convenience and less data.
Right.
just
I don't want to
wanted
have to
to-
chew all fucking day.
yeah. So you
If
just
I wanted to
go
work out, I'd go to the gym.
see-
I just want it to go into my mouth, swallow it like a snake.
Yeah.
Just chew it with your throat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I can't even give an answer. Those you both just have me beat right there, man.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe
I'll just send a
Just say
maple
God.
long john to
maybe
you.
like a low carb taco.
So just the meat.
Yeah, just the meat. That's it.
Mm.
Folks, when you email us about this episode, tell us what meal you would download
In
and,
your mouth.
while you're doing in your mouth, like a maple long john.
Directly.
Yes.
Directly in your mouth.
Yeah.
Exactly. And also have a good week.
Oh shit. That was it. We're done.
That was
Yeah, that was such an abrupt ending, wasn't it?
Oh,
I
and
just-
also goodbye.
I just figured I was just gonna go for it this time.
I liked it. I'm sorry I ruined it.
Like I just decided not to wait.
Enough
know?
of this fucking bullshit.
Let's just-
Click.
I mean, I really want to hear people. I actually genuinely want to hear people say what kind of meal they're going to download.
Yeah,
I'm very
but that's
interested.
it.
But
No
yeah,
more
let's-
conversation.
Yep, no more conversation. Exactly. That sounds good to me.
Wonderful.
and like the look on people's faces is just like what?